Hello and welcome. I'm Tatiana Cirisano. I'm a senior music industry analyst at MIDiA Research.
And I'm Fernanda Balzaretti, and I'm a music researcher here at MIDiA Research.
And we are so thrilled to share the news of our new report on the business of songwriting, which is based on MIDiA's first ever survey of songwriters. We asked songwriters all about their lives, how they earn revenue, what their biggest challenges are, how they define success, and the tools that would help them succeed. And actually, so much more than that. But today, we're going to share just a few of the key insights from this report with two incredible songwriters and businesswomen who I will let introduce themselves. Helene, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Helene Lindvall. I'm from Sweden, but based in London. I've worked as a professional songwriter for other people for about 20 years. And before that, I was an artist, a performing artist. I'm also the president of the European Composer and Songwriter Alliance, which is like the umbrella organization for all European songwriter organizations. So we represent, and our members are like 30,000 songwriters.
Hello, I'm Mariami, and I'm a recording artist and songwriter based in New York City. I've been in the music industry in various roles around the creative and business side for over 15 years. I did my undergrad at Berkeley and Emerson in Boston, and I'm now a music business master's student at NYU. I write full time for many artists all over the world in multiple genres, and I also run an indie record label called Sungate Records. We manage digital strategy for indie artists, and I'm really excited to be here.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. We're so thrilled to have you. Fernanda, you want to kick it off with some of the
Yeah,
insights?
of course. The top two challenges for songwriters in our sample were lack of meaningful streaming income and breaking through the noise. While breaking through got easier with time and experience, lack of meaningful income remained the top challenge for our songwriters, regardless of tenure, level of professionalism, and income level, suggesting that even once you break through the noise and overcome all of the other hurdles, streaming income still holds songwriters back. So we wanted, can you speak to your experience with these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kick it off. I've been campaigning for songwriters' rights for quite a while, and in particular, um, since the streaming age or the digital age, where people start buying physical records, the way we make a living has changed drastically. And the thing that makes it so next to impossible, I would say that we've lost the entire middle class of songwriters. Because in just to kind of explain how much you make from streaming, we did an analysis because you don't make a set streaming rate. It all depends on how many people stream, how many people stream for free, and what country they stream, and whatever. But we did worked out an average of what you earn from different services for 1 million streams if you've written 100% of a song. Like 100, it's very rare that anybody writes 100% of the song. I think the average for a top 40 is about 5 these days. But if you wrote 100% and you own your own publishing, you would make between, well, for the free YouTube, it's about 125 pounds. So, I guess that would be maybe $150 for 1 million streams. For Spotify, 1 million Spotify streams, it was about 500 pounds. And for 1 million Apple streams, it was about 1,000 pounds. So you can imagine how difficult it is to make a living off of that. And getting to 1 million streams is really, really difficult. And even like once you kind of roll up to a few hundred streams, then 100 million streams rather, then it sort of can roll along. But getting to those first million streams is very difficult for any song. So it's totally changed the way we make money. It used to be with physical that you could still have album tracks that would still kind of tick over, so you'd make enough to kind of continue writing and work on your craft. But now you make from a so-called album track maybe $5 to $10. So that actually is less than what you usually spend on a day going into write. So I think you basically need to have a radio hit to be able to make a living as a songwriter.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So in considering that, when I entered the music industry on the songwriting side, I sort of always was hesitant about that. So alternatively, I actually formed a sort of a business model or a structure where I would account for knowing there would be a lack of streaming royalties by charging a higher upfront fee. And I did that by being a provider on a couple different marketplaces, primarily SoundBetter and Vocalizer. So I would try to account for the lack of streaming royalties by adjusting how much I ask for on the front end. If I know a song is going to have a big backing or be backed by a label, then I might ask for a little bit less on the front end and a higher percentage. But even for those songs that have historically performed well in my catalog that are affiliated with bigger entities, the royalties are never life-changing or needle moving or significant enough for me to forego my practice, which is to charge a very, what I think is reasonable and sustainable, like fair market rate for what I consider a deliverable, which is melody, lyrics, 3 rounds of revisions, and dry and wet stems upon completion. And I work a lot in EDM. So it's basically, and it's funny because, you know, a lot of people have been like, well, how are you earning as a songwriter? And like friends are always asking me. And it's truly been this approach to music, to songwriting as a business, as an entrepreneur would charge for their services. If you want just lyrics, I have a set rate for that. If you want just a top line, I have a set rate for that. And I've never backed down from that. And, you know, people will approach me and be like, oh, well, this song is going to do really well. And actually, we'll do a 50-50 split. And I'm like, I don't care. So I've stuck by that. And it's been a really sustainable and like the foundation of what I would consider like my songwriting business. So I don't look to streaming as my solution personally.
No, that's actually, you're such a good case study, Mariami, for what we found in the report, which was that when we segmented songwriters by income level and whether they're full-time or not, we found that the higher earners and those that have been able to turn songwriting into a full-time job do so by diversifying their revenue streams into upfront revenue sources. So things like work for hire, things like per diems, which I know can also be difficult to fight for if you're an emerging songwriter, which is a whole other thing. But we did see that really clear divide. And, you know, it's interesting too, because we do a similar survey to all creators at MIDiA. And what we find on the artist side is also the more income they earn, the more they're diversifying their revenue streams beyond streaming. But recording artists have traditionally had more sort of avenues to do that, like selling merchandise and, you know, touring. And of course, so many songwriters, you're also a recording artist. But the point kind of still stands for songwriters. It's a little bit more difficult, I guess.
It is. Yeah.
To add to what Mary was saying, been talking about per diems, and that's like the most basic thing. And the reason that we started with that is because a lot of the time songwriters are asked to go in with an emerging artist that is signed to a label but has not released anything yet, and they're still working out the sound and they're still working out the you know, what they're going to have on the first album. And if you don't have per diems, then it's very little value on songwriters' time. So usually what the label will do is they might host a songwriting camp where everybody writes for that artist. And, you know, obviously not all of those songs are going to get cut. And then if the artist has a share of that song, it's going to be difficult to pitch it somewhere else. Then they might put they might put their artist in with a songwriter team for maybe a week, and then another songwriter team for, you know, for the next week. And then they accumulate maybe 50 to 100 songs and choose the songs they want to have on the album. So what's happened through the past, I would say 10, 15 years is that the A&R, the development of new artists, has kind of been moved over to producers and songwriters. And so the risk taking a lot of the time comes on the songwriter side in the beginning. So for us, a per diem, a very basic per diem of £75 would at least make sure that you don't lose money. And then to kind of relate to what Mary was saying, what we're also asking for is a songwriter fee, because the songwriter only makes like 15% of the streaming royalties, while the label makes 55%. So even, as I said, even if you make 10 million streams or have 10 million streams, that's not really going to be valuable enough. So you want to have something, if a song is cut, that you at least have something basic up front. And then finally, points on the master, so that you participate if the song is really successful. And what we want is those points to come from the label, not from the artist, because the artist is already giving out points to the producer. So you can almost say that what we're looking at is, producers already get an upfront fee, and they get, hopefully they get an upfront fee. Sometimes they hardly get that these days, but hopefully they get an upfront fee and points on the master, and to also have that on the songwriter side, as in the top liner who writes melody and lyrics.
In addition to kind of trying to boost those upfront revenue streams, more songwriters actually trying to step out of the spotlight a little bit more and build a following around their songwriting and have things like brand deals and stuff like that. And it was really interesting to Fernanda and I to see the responses in our survey questions about social media, because of course, so many songwriters get into this because they like being in the background, but it seems they're increasingly using social for their businesses. So Fernanda, why don't you share some of the insights there, and then we can see what Mari and Helen think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most surprising insights that we got from the survey and from this report, that when we asked, what services and tools would be most helpful to songwriters, the top three were sync pitching, as Helene was talking about, help building a brand and an image, and connections to collaborators. The branding one was particularly interesting because in a separate question, we saw that, the majority of songwriters are using social media to build a brand around their songwriting, not just for their own personal experience. And that's not just a generational thing. We saw it across all levels and across all ages. So do you think it's necessary for songwriters to be on social media today, and why or why not?
I love this question. My personal relationship with social media has been an interesting one, because it started out as an artist, and the songwriting stuff was always ancillary or supportive to the artist stuff. So if I have a new release, I'll find a way to integrate that into my catalog or my portfolio on Sound Better. And it's often happened where, I'll have a song that's like a bad bitch anthem or like an empowering girls song. And then it happens numerous times where I'll have a client be like, hey, Madi, can I have a song in the style of XYZ? And they'll cite my catalog as references. So I've found a way to like dance between the two to have them complement each other. And I also will say, when I went a little too hard left in the, I was like, okay, songwriting, I gotta start making content for songwriting. I gotta start educating people. I started a whole separate songwriting Instagram account called the Mariami Sound during COVID, because I had so much downtime. And interestingly, it actually negatively impacted my presence, because I was creating too many places for people to find me without having a clear like call to action. So like people were confused. They were like, do I book you through your Instagram page? Do I book you through your Sound Better? My revenue actually went down, and I was spending all this time like making songwriting focused content, just thinking about like how I can drive value to educate about the songwriting process. When that's not really my niche. Being an artist is, I already have a robust presence and following as an artist. I was just like trying to do more because, I think that's our nature as people. When something's working, like we want to do more of it. And so, yeah, it actually negatively impacted my revenue. And when I stopped that page entirely and just focused on having a strong Sound Better profile, a strong catalog, driving value to my clients, my existing clients, things started to go back up again. So I just thought that was really interesting because, and Tatiana, we talked about this, like, I think the term you used was like, if you're making a bunch of songwriting content, like, is it enough juice for the squeeze? I think we were talking about TikTok. So for me personally, I have found that just being authentically an artist and serving my artist career and having the songwriting be ancillary to that has been like my healthy little ecosystem. But if I try to drive it as a business too much, I think it confuses people about what I even do. They're like, is she a writer? Is she a songwriter? Is she a businesswoman? Like, and that's been my personal challenge and my like life's project to balance all this. But I guess in summary, sometimes less is more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, I mean, you bring up an interesting thing, because when you're an artist as well as a songwriter, it kind of opens up other avenues. I do know top liners who are also have their separate career as kind of singers, in particular with electronic music. If you're a songwriter that doesn't perform, that will just write for other people, a lot of, social media is your business card. This is what I always say when I, talk to young songwriters. It has to kind of really relay who you are as a creator, because people are always going to go on social media. And when, for us, usually, well, TikTok and Instagram will be the most common ones. Even when I collaborate with people, I'll usually go on Instagram. I mean, for me, it's not make or break if I'm going to work with somebody, because I'm probably going to listen to their music, and first of all. But I think, a lot of songwriters are aware that if you look successful, I mean, sometimes I joke about, I want to do like an Instagram where I'm just sitting, like eating my breakfast cereal with like no makeup and like, what do I have planned today? But most people will kind of post things of being in the studio, showing that you're busy. That's kind of the brand that most people want to display as a songwriter, not just for other songwriters, but for record labels, for artists that might find you, that might hear some of your stuff and be interested in having a collaboration. And even with up and coming songwriters, I would say, there are platforms like SoundCloud where you can kind of create your brand and then reach out, because that's in a way almost an even more collaborative platform for creators to meet. So it could be quite useful. A lot of people in EDM will kind of be in dance music and electronic music will be on platforms like that, and you can check out each other's music in that way. But I think you're right, Mary, even with that you can't be too confusing. If you're a songwriter, even if you're a songwriter, like I have quite a broad spectrum that I write with country artists, I write EDM, I write with pop R&B artists. I create separate playlists for all of those to not confuse people too much. So if I'm, so I will send the playlist to, tailor it towards who I'm aiming to work with.
I've just one more thing I want to add to this that came to mind. I know this one producer on Sound Better. I won't say his name just for confidentiality purposes, but I know he joined Sound Better like shortly, I think, into the pandemic, 2020. And then all of a sudden I see Sound Better post that XYZ person had hit 1 million in revenue. So he scaled, he earned 1 million on the platform. Like, and when you earn $1 million on Sound Better through work for hire, you get a little platinum plaque from them. I think there's only been 2 people that have hit that mark. I'm not there yet, but just to give you the reference of what is possible there, I think in 2 or 3 years, this guy earned 2 million. That's over $300,000 a year, which is a very healthy income for a producer. And I remember going to his Instagram, no posts, like nothing, like the picture of his daughter and his child, maybe a picture of his pool backyard. This guy is not making content. He is just focused on busting out really good beats. Next thing I do, I go to his page, I check out his discography, just clean, beautiful production. I know another duo in the Bay Area. They don't post much, but I know they're always booked and busy. I think this is just also a testament of just like focusing on the craft, being really good at what you do. And sometimes you really just do let the music speak for itself. Not to say that if you don't have a platinum hit or a big moment or a Grammy nomination, you should absolutely be posting that stuff. But it's interesting because I see the hustle porn side of things, the people that are like constantly like trying to bust out content and content and content and like, or maybe even keep up a facade or something. And I'm like, the ROI is just not there. And then people who are just in their craft and focused and doing their thing and sort of like letting the music speak for itself. So I think people just have, it's a case by case basis. Like you just have to ask yourself what matters to you, where your strengths are, and then build around that. But I just hate to see the hustle porn because it just seems so exhausting. It seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, and we
For
also
content.
asked the survey about how much time songwriters are spending on all these various parts of their business.
So much time.
And creating content is a big part of that. And we have finite, availability of time for all of these things. So if you're taking time away from working on your craft, if you're spending more time on social media, it means you're taking time away from something else, which is probably working on your craft. So you really have to have that balance. And I think you both, bring such helpful perspectives to that of the both sides of, on the one hand, you do need to have, the business card of social media. In a lot of ways, it's almost like it can be your resume for some people and how they reach you. But on the other hand, you don't want it to become something you're focusing on so much that your craft is suffering.
To add something to that, and I think the sound bit of the work for hire is like one part of the business that a lot of songwriters have kind of gone to because it's so difficult to make a living from writing just for writing to brief for artists. But also another avenue that people have kind of looked to, and this comes a lot also because of the way streaming is paid, is making music that is kind of leaned back, like background music. You might have seen the report about the Swedish guy Johan Rör, who have had all these kind of fake artist things. I mean, to me, he's a songwriter. We were signed to BMG at the same time. He's like a very accomplished songwriter, but he clearly worked out that he would be able to make more money as a songwriter, churning out music for playlists that would be, coffee house music or whatever else, where people have it in the background for like 7-8 hours a day at work, because that's how the streaming economy is working. And I think that's kind of become one avenue for people now. Of course, with AI, that might all go out the window as well. So then, people have to again.
Another thing that's in the report, I wish we had more time to talk about everything that's in there. But we can't thank you both enough for taking the time to come on here and, talk about our report and share your experiences. And for anyone listening, you can download the free asset of this report below. And if you're interested in the full report, there's also a link to that there. So thank you everyone so much for joining us.